Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a wonderful, amazing time. So today, oh my god, this is one of my favorite videos to make of all time because I get to talk about all my favorite books. So today I'm going to talk about the best books of 2019. It feels weird to say 2019. I'm already in 2020, no joke. So today I'm going to talk about 10 books, and I feel like I had a little bit of an off reading year. Like, there are 3 books on this list that I'm really passionate about and that I really love like a lot, and then the other ones are just like I like them and I gave them 5 stars, and there's more books that I gave 5 stars, but there's only really 3 I would give 6 stars, if that makes sense. So let's talk about it. I am going to start with my least favorite book and build up to my most favorite. How should I sit? All right, so you're going to be seeing the book here because I'm not actually at home, as you can see. So the first book I want to talk about is Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer. This is such an important book and I believe everyone should read it. This is a non-fiction about factory farming basically and everything that goes into eating animals. He makes so many great points, and I feel like everyone has an obligation to get educated when it comes to what you're eating, where your food is coming from, because whether you like it or not, you are making a statement with what you're eating, since eating is such an important part of our life and we do it all the time, and whatever you put your money into is what you're supporting. And I think a lot of people like don't really realize that, and they think that by not taking a stand you're basically avoiding the situation, but of course you are avoiding the situation, but you're always taking a stand whether you believe it or not anyways. And I just think that this book is so important. It talks a lot about animal cruelty and different people who work in the industry. It interviews the people that are for factory farming, and I just think it's such an important book. Like, I just want everyone to read this book. I think, oh my god, like I think everyone has an obligation, like I said, to get this information and educate themselves, and this is such a great place to start. Like, I'm just so passionate about this right now. Like, it has really like taken over my life. Number 9 on the list is the 3rd book in the Nevernight Chronicles. This is Dark Dawn, and I think this is my least favorite in the series, which does say a lot that it is number 9 on my favorites list. It basically wraps up the whole story of this girl assassin who lives in this Venice like fantasy world, and she has these magical powers that makes her have like a cat shadow that always follows her, and he has all these like snarky comments. It's kind of on the edge of young adult and adult, in my opinion. It has very flowery writing. It is such a great series. I highly recommend it. It's so addicting. Like, once you start, you cannot stop. And this conclusion was kind of no different. It has this element of someone telling the story to you, and the way that this narrator is like telling the story is very cool. And it's, in the end, it's like last book, the narrator is being very self-reflecting in the way that the narrator is narrating. Like, it's kind of ironic in a way, and it was just like a great conclusion to the series. And just this whole series, I highly recommend it. And also all the other series on this list, like if I recommend one book in the series, I do recommend the whole series. It's all just my favorite that I read this year. Alright, so I'm a little bit iffy about putting this on the list, but next I have Death Note at place 8, and I have so many mixed feelings about this series as a whole. If you like manga, I definitely think you should check it out. Like, it's pretty good. But there came to a point, I think the 2nd and 3rd book, which are my favorites, I think, like, where I was just so obsessed, and it was kind of like me being introduced to the whole concept and me like really getting addicted to it. And so I think like those are my favorite just because that's when I like got into it, and it was just like, it was such an amazing experience in the beginning, and then the end kind of like went downhill. Those are my siblings. I can't help it. Someone is crying. But yeah, as a whole, I don't really want to talk too much about it because it's just like, it's basically about this guy who finds a notebook where every person he writes in the notebook dies, and you can like dictate how they're gonna die and their actions before they die. And he gets followed by this Shinyami who owns the Death Note, and he's basically like a god of death sort of thing. And it just like, it takes so many interesting turns, and the main character, Light, who finds the diary. He is extremely clever. In the beginning, you're kind of rooting for him because he seems so incredibly clever, but then you end up really hating him. You realize how much of like a non-person he is and how like gross his whole personality is. Like, it's just such a weird experience, but I do recommend the series as a whole. It was really good. All right, okay, number 7 on my list is a Brandon Sanderson. This is The Well of Ascension, which is the second book in the Mistborn trilogy. I think the Mistborn trilogy is my least favorite of all the Brandon Sandersons I have read so far. Especially in the Cosmere. I think everyone recommends them so highly, but I liked it. I was not a huge fan. I think I gave the last book even 4 stars, maybe a little bit biased because obviously I have really high expectations when it comes to Brandon Sanderson. But the second book I really liked, and the first one is definitely my favorite. But I read the first one in the last year, so I can't put that on the list. It's really putting mood in with all this crying. Let's talk about some great books. So, The Well of Ascension, I actually read this. This is the first book I think I read this year, and so I don't remember so much what happens in it, but like, just like Brandon Sanderson's like whole magic system, especially in this book, is just so brilliant. The way you can like swallow metals to gain powers, like that's awesome. I also really like the characters in this and how the magic system develops. I love it when the people in a story don't know the whole magic system and you're kind of learning it with them and the world, and you kind of like get to realize how big everything is, and it's just crazy. So that is book number 7. Book number 6 is The Fall of Hyperion. I think this whole series is really great, and I am gonna read the last book as the last book of this year, so I will have completed the series. But I think The Fall of Hyperion, the second book in this Hyperion Cantos, is my favorite. It is basically like an epic sci-fi. It's really hard to explain. Like, there's just so many elements. You know, when you read like an epic, really like an epic fantasy or sci-fi, and there's just so many stuff, and you're like, where should I start? But it's many centuries in the future where humanity has left the Earth, and they're colonized so many planets out in the solar system as well as other solar systems, and they have this way of like traveling in between them, and then there's all these like government organizations that kind of have treaties, and then there's a lot of politics, and there's a lot of cool sci-fi elements. There's a lot of discussions about time, and the way Dan Simmons ends his book, and it just blows my mind. It's just wow, like I've never experienced that amount of mind-blowing in a sci-fi before, and I was just like amazing reading this book. It's definitely a harder read, but wow, it was so good. On number 5 place, we have Grey Sister. I still haven't read Holy Sister, the last book in this series. I realized I haven't named the author, but it's because I don't have the book in front of me, so then I just like, this one is by Mark Lawrence, and it is the second book in the Ancestors trilogy, I want to say, and it follows this character called Nona, and oh my god, it's just gonna be crying this whole video. I'm so sorry. And she's basically turns out to be this kick-ass assassin, and then there's always all these like nun school, and they all teach different areas of expertise, and then there's all about like these friendships. And I still haven't read the short story that follows Grey Sister, but there's also like gay romances in this, which is, I'm very excited for it. I'm very excited. The politics are a little bit confusing, and I still don't have like a great grasp of it, but this world and the way he writes is just like, it's so intriguing, and the action is just like amazing, and it has a school setting, and it has an assassin in it, and it's just like really cool. Oh, and I really liked the second book. I was a little bit iffy about the first one, but the second one was just so amazing, and I'm so excited for the last one. The 4th book on this list is Night Shadow. This is the second book in a quartet. The first one is Traitor's Blade by Sebastian de Castell, and this book was just amazing. Like, this author I think he was a fencer or duelist or something, so he knows all these stuff about fighting, and the fighting scenes are amazing. Like, they're really spectacular, and it's just like, you can't stop reading it once you start this book, and the characters are just so deep. And I recently read the 3rd one, so I'm really passionate about this series right now, and I just don't hear people talking enough about it. I think it's really, really good, but I think it's a series that needs to be, or like a book that needs to be read quicker, because I struggled a little bit with the third book and how in the beginning I wasn't reading so consistently, and so I got a little bit out of touch in the story, and then I really didn't like it as much. So it definitely is a book that needs to be read quicker, but when you do, like, it's just amazing. Like, it's really good. And the friendships, like, it's about like these three great codes who try to protect their realm, but everyone is basically against them and everyone's trying to kill them, and they just like have each other. It's so nice. And the main character, he's a widower, and the relationship he has to his dead wife like makes me cry every time the author talks about it. It's just so emotional, and it sounds like my siblings are like being abused. I promise this is not normal. I don't know what's going on. I'm a little bit concerned actually. So it turns out I put 3 on 2 of the books. What is going on? But let's just go with it. There's 3 books apparently. The first one is On a Sunbeam. This is a graphic novel by Tilly Walden, I want to say. It's a sci-fi, and it's also, so there's only like women and girls in this, and there's a lot of like great LGBTQ plus representation, and the artwork is amazing, and you're following dual timelines, and somehow this main character, who we get to follow, one in school and one later when she works on this ship that rebuilds old buildings around space, they kind of submerge in the end, and it's really cool, and I was so touched by this story. I really liked it, and I highly recommend it, and it was just like, it's probably the best graphic novel that I've ever read. I just thought it was really good on so many levels. The last 3 books are like my favorite of the year of all time. Like, these books are just like must reads. They're so amazing and I love them so much, and they're like definitely 3 of my new favorite books of all time. And the number 3 of that is Recursion by Blake Crouch. You're following a couple of perspectives about this man who is a policeman, and he's trying to talk this woman out of killing herself, and she's talking about how she remembers this reality that isn't actually her reality and her life, and then she comes back to her life and it's just like not her real life, because she feels like she has this other life that she remembers as well. And this is kind of like a disease or something that has come up in society, where a lot of people are experiencing different timelines of their lives that didn't actually happen, and a lot of suicides are happening. So this policeman, you're following him, and then you're following this woman who is researching memory because her mother died of Alzheimer's, or is dying of Alzheimer's, I don't remember. And then these 2 like people somehow is connected, and they meet each other, and it's like such a great book. I cried so much at the end. It is like amazing. So good. Like, you have to read this sci-fi. It's all about time and memory, and it's so interesting. It's so touching. Like, and honestly, like, oh, stop. Like, it's just so good. It's just so good. You really need to read it. It's one of the greatest like love stories of all time. It is amazing. Just read it. The writing is so easy, but it's still an adult, so definitely go and check it out. Number 2, we have From a Wreck. This is a historical fiction magical realism book. So it's in the 1800s. It takes place, and this man is on a shipwreck, and somehow this creature from the ocean gets attached to him that he doesn't know of, and he takes it home, and then this creature that we don't really know so much about gets attached to his son, and you kind of get to follow this family and also this creature, and it's just like very interesting. And I don't usually like historical fiction. I actually only read 2 historical fiction this year, which is crazy. But like the way that this author, Jane Rawson, I think her name is, just captures like loneliness and all these things, you know, when you're reading a book and you're experiencing emotions like you didn't know even existed, and you don't know how to put words on it, but it's just like, it was so well written, and I read it in one day during Booktubeathon, so maybe that's like a reason why I love it so much. But it was just so good, and it isn't even that big of a book. It's so good, and just like, it has such a low rating on Goodreads, and I don't understand. Like, I love this book. If you like historical fiction or magical realism and something like that, like, you definitely need to check it out. And my favorite book of the year, and this book just blew my mind, you guys. I didn't know anything about this book. I randomly picked it up in the store. It turned out to be like an older version rewritten, and it was just, oh my god, guys. Battle Royale. I don't remember the author's name, but I also watched the movie, and the movie is also like one of my favorite movies. It's so good. So it basically has this Hunger Games concept where all these kids are taken to an island. This whole class actually is taken to an island, like class 9B or something. And they all have to kill themselves. They all have to kill each other until one person remains, and that is like the winner. And throughout the book, you don't really know why this society is doing this, and you kind of get revealed at the end. But it's so intense. Like, I could not put this book down. It made me start doubting like all the relationships I had, because like, would these people kill me if they were put in the same situations, or are they like people I would trust and ally with when I was in the situation, you know? And I started like thinking about all my own relationships, and I like couldn't stop thinking about the book and the characters. And it has a really long character list, but it's like really no problem remembering who the characters are. It's like a 700-page book, and I couldn't put it down. Like, it was just like constantly action-packed, and like if you're in a reading slump, just read this book. Don't get intimidated by the length. Like, it's just so brilliant. It's so good. It's just like, I was just amazed. Oh my god, I was so amazed. That's what those words were. I get excited, I can't speak properly. So that is apparently my list of 11 favorite books of this year. Any of these books are highly recommended. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment below your favorite books of this year. I would love to get some recommendations and just talk about your favorite books. Share them with me. Have a good time in the comments. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. Have a lovely reading time. Have a lovely holiday. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye!